Hello and welcome to the CompTIA Cybersecurity Analyst CSA Plus Certification Study Guide. In this video, we will discuss Chapter 12.2, Controls for Protecting Sensitive Data. There are two categories of controls that should be used by organizations to protect both sensitive user data as well as important corporate data. These categories are technical controls and non-technical controls. The different technical controls for protecting data can be grouped into four classifications. There are controls to prevent access to data, limit access to data, hide data, and destroy data. One classification of technical controls is to prevent access to the data so that an unapproved third party simply cannot access it. These controls include encryption, data loss prevention, geographic access requirements, and access controls. Please subscribe, and leave a comment. Encryption. Perhaps the most obvious means of preventing access to data is to use encryption, whereas cryptography is the science of concealing information by using a secret key, the method. Encryption is the means to scramble the information, the process. There are several common use cases, situations for encryption that can provide a range of security protections. One of the most important protections is confidentiality, which can protect the information by ensuring that only authorized parties can view it. When private information, such as a list of employees to be laid off, is transmitted across the network or stored on a file server, its contents can be encrypted, which allows only authorized individuals who have the key to read it. Information protections by cryptography. Confidentiality ensures that only authorized parties can view the information. Encrypted information can only be viewed by those who have been provided the key. Integrity ensures that the information is correct, and no unauthorized person or malicious software has altered the data. Encrypted information cannot be changed except by authorized users who have the key. Authentication provides proof of the genuineness of the user. Proof that the sender was legitimate and not an imposter can be obtained. Non-repudiation proves that a user performed an action. Individuals are prevented from fraudulently denying that they were involved in a transaction. Obfuscation makes something obscure or unclear. By making it obscure, the original information cannot be determined. The European Union's EU 2018 General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, does not consider encryption or replacing identifying information as strong enough measures that can fully anonymize data to remove all PII. Data loss prevention, or DLP, is crucial. While the threat of data collection from outside the organization remains high, inside employees are increasingly being careless or making mistakes when handling confidential data. Employee carelessness with data has been identified in two primary areas. First, against company policy, many employees routinely send confidential data to their own private email accounts so they can easily access it when needed. About 1/3 of employees admit to sending corporate data to their personal email accounts up to 3 times each month. Second, sensitive data is often sent to an approved third-party organization as an email attachment, but to the wrong recipient. Almost 3/4 of employees admit to sending data to the wrong recipient once per month. Surprisingly, research has shown that security awareness training has not had an impact on employee mishandling of sensitive data. The percentage of employees who admit to sending misdirected emails is the highest in organizations that provide security awareness training most frequently. And these same employees are almost twice as likely to send company data to their personal email accounts. One means of securing internal corporate data is through data loss prevention, DLP. DLP is a system of security tools used to recognize and identify data that is critical to the organization and ensure it is protected. This protection involves monitoring who is using the data, how it is being accessed, and sounding an alert and blocking the export of restricted data. DLP is considered as rights management, or the authority of the owner of the data to impose restrictions on its use. Most DLP systems use content inspection. Content inspection is a security analysis of the transaction within its approved context. Content inspection looks at not only the security level of the data, but also who is requesting it, where the data is stored, when it was requested, and where it is going. DLP systems can also use index matching. Documents that have been identified as needing protection, such as the program source code for a new software application, are analyzed by the DLP system, and complex computations are conducted based on the analysis. Thereafter, if even a small part of that document is leaked, the DLP system can recognize the snippet as being from a protected document. DLP begins with an administrator creating DLP rules based on the data, what is to be examined, and the policy, what to check for. DLPs can be configured to look for specific data, such as social security and credit card numbers, lines of computer software source code, words in a sequence to prevent a report from leaving the network, maximum file sizes, and file types. These rules are then loaded into a DLP server. If a policy violation is detected by the DLP agent, it is reported back to the DLP server. Different actions can then be taken. These could include blocking the data, redirecting it to an individual who can examine the request, quarantining the data until later, or alerting a supervisor of the request. One of the drawbacks of DLP is that rules must be continually created and maintained as new employees, third-party agent contractors, and customers are added and new datasets are created. Increasingly, machine learning is used by DLP to continually create and modify the criteria for protecting data. Geographic access requirements. Whereas DLP restricts data based on its content, another control technology can be used to restrict data based on the location of the user. This requires that the user be in a specific location in order to access the data. This is known as geographic access requirements, or more commonly, geofencing. Geofencing is often used by the court system. As a condition of release until a trial, an accused individual is put under house arrest and is fitted with an ankle bracelet that will alert authorities if they leave the house. Geofencing begins by taking advantage of the Global Positioning System, GPS, which is a satellite-based navigation system that provides information to a GPS receiver anywhere on or near Earth, where there is an unobstructed line of sight to 4 or more GPS satellites. Mobile devices with GPS capabilities typically support geolocation, or the process of identifying the geographical location of the device. By identifying the location of the device, and hence the person carrying it, geolocation can tell the location of a close friend or the address of the nearest coffee shop. Location services are used extensively by social media, navigation systems, weather systems, and other mobile-aware applications. Banks are expanding the use of geolocation to help reduce bank card fraud. When a user makes a purchase at a specific store, the bank can immediately check the location of the cell phone. If the cell phone and the bank card are in the same place, then the purchase may be considered legitimate. But if the cell phone is in Nashville and someone is trying to make a purchase in a store in Tampa, then the payment may be rejected. Geolocation can also help prevent rejecting valid purchases, a false positive. One credit card issuer says that this can reduce these unnecessary declines by as much as 30%. By using GPS, geofencing can define the geographical boundaries within which an app can be used to access specific data. For example, a tablet containing patient information that leaves the hospital grounds or an employee who attempts to enter a restricted area with a device can result in blocking data access as well as sending an alert to an administrator. There are also risks of geolocation. Mobile device users using geolocation are at increased risk of targeted physical attacks since an attacker can determine where the user with the mobile device is currently located and then use that information to follow the user to steal the device or inflict harm on the person. A related risk is geotagging, which is adding geographical identification data to media such as digital photos taken on a mobile device. A user who, for example, posts a photo on a social networking site may inadvertently be identifying a specific private location to anyone who can access the photo. Access controls. As its name implies, access control is granting or denying approval to use specific resources. It is limiting or controlling access to assets. While physical access control consists of fencing or hardware door locks to limit contact with devices, technical access control consists of technology restrictions that limit users on digital devices from accessing resources and data. Using access controls for preventing access to data involves access control schemes and access control lists. Using access controls for preventing access to data involves access control schemes and access control lists. Access control schemes. The task of a system administrator who needs to act as an access control data custodian or steward for multiple employees using hundreds of thousands of files scattered across a multitude of different servers can be made easier by the fact that the hardware and software have a predefined framework that the custodian can use for controlling access. This framework, called an access control scheme, is embedded in the software and hardware. The custodian steward can use the appropriate scheme to configure the necessary level of control. Using these schemes is part of privileged access management, which is the technologies and strategies for controlling elevated, privileged access and permissions. There are several major access control schemes. The Discretionary Access Control (DAC) scheme is one of the most common but also the least restrictive. With the DAC scheme, every object has an owner who has total control over that object. Most importantly, the owner has discretion, the choice, as to who can access their objects and can grant permissions to other subjects over these objects. DAC is used on all major operating systems. OSS. Figure 12.1 illustrates the DAC that a Microsoft Windows owner has over an object. These controls can be configured so that another user can have full or limited access over a file, printer, or other object. The Rule-Based Access Control Scheme, also called the Rule-Based Role-Based Access Control (RBAC) scheme, or Automated Provisioning, is more robust and can dynamically assign roles to subjects based on a set of rules defined by a custodian, called conditional access. Each resource object contains a set of access properties based on the rules. When a user attempts to access that resource, the system checks the rules contained in that object to determine if access is permissible. If you find this video useful, please hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. To see more videos like this, please click in the rectangle in the middle of your screen. To see other videos from this channel, please click the circle on the bottom right. Thanks for watching. We will see you on the next one.